And we have a quorum present. I'm going to call the Warrant Committee meeting to order. It's January 31st, 2023, 7 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available later on. Hello, Mather. How are you? You want to say you're participating remotely?
Mather Elder participating remotely.
Great, excellent. Okay, the first order of business is the approval of the minutes for the January 17th, 2023 meeting. And entertain a motion if everyone's had a chance to look at those. Any questions, comments?
Motion to approve the minutes of January 17th as submitted.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have to do a roll call because he's on he's on Zoom, so we have to go.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And Mather?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Tonight, we're gonna go through a number of department budgets for the fiscal 24 budget. And then there may be some potential non-department budget reviews. Christine will take us through an update of the financial policy compliance for last year, as well as an overview. We'll see an overview of the. You should have received an email like 3 or 4 minutes ago with a budget worksheet, and it just got finalized, and so Christine's going to take us through that, and we'll also talk about the list of warrant articles. One thing I do want to just mention is that for all you romantic types out there, we changed the date of the February 14th meeting to February 13th.
You're welcome.
A strong suggestion from our town administrator.
I would like my new members, everybody, to stay on this.
So that 14th meeting has been moved to the 13th. It's now a Monday.
Yep.
Okay, so we do have some department budgets for Pete. Pete's gonna introduce them. I know you have a certain planned order, so people can go first.
I just want to say, I know that the accountant's on here. I did not talk to the accountant.
That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, and the treasurer, I think.
Correct.
Yeah, those are not yours, right?
Right.
Right.
Go up home a few hours, but so Sarah, everyone I met with was wonderful. Sarah, with that general observation. Sarah and Marion and Pamela, who's not yet here, were all great and were very generous with their time and meeting with me and explaining to a neophyte what they do. And I'll just start with a totally random thing that it was brand new to me in Marion's office, that I didn't need to be going to Boston to get my daughter's birth certificates, that I could have gotten them here. And I felt now who knows when, if ever, I will need them again. Provide passes, they have passports and driver's licenses, but that was something I learned. But anyway, I'll let Sarah start talking about her budget.
Well, I'm first of all very surprised that you didn't learn something very extraordinary from our public.
I didn't mean to slight anyone, but I turned meeting with Marion doing particularly stupid. And unfortunately, I didn't come out of the meeting with you doing quite that bad.
All right. Yeah, I won that. So I know several of you now, either through Warrant Committee activities and sometimes through not Warrant Committee activities. So just as a reminder, Sarah Rose, the town planner, and my budget is $142,859.52, and that is salaries at 125,974, for FY 24. And that's a full-time planner salary and a part-time administrative assistant salary. And then the operations are, I would say, fairly modest. You know, they're all activities that help the planning department run. And I work with a number of boards, so planning board, ZBA, Affordable Housing Trust, State Hospital Redevelopment. I'm working with open space and rec now. Previously, I've worked with economic development or master planning. So sometimes the committees come and go. But about 2 years ago, we merged the separate planning board budget and ZBA budget into one departmental budget. And that actually works a lot better to meet the needs of all of the boards and committees that do planning activities that I'm working with.
Great. Any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, the conservation agent, is that the open position now?
Yes, it is. So that was part of the restructuring that happened about 3 years ago when Christine took over. So we consolidated the planning board and ZBA, which I had been working with separately. And then when Leslie Willits retired a year and a half ago now, the board sort of merged under land use. So a variety of activities associated with the development of land, but the conservation budget still is a conservation commission budget right now. I'm managing it for them, but I don't technically represent them. So they also have
But
very
that's
modest
the
budget.
position that had been part-time and is going to full.
Yes, so we lost the part-time agent last May and have advertised it in a number of places, a number of times. Not really getting any traction with it. As you know, it's still vacant. So the notion is to create a full-time position that still works for the Conservation Commission part-time, same hours and responsibilities, but actually broadens and helps do more work associated with the town's responsibilities associated with land management. Some other things like stormwater and GIS are good attributes that we can look for in a full-time staff person.
Have you ever looked at sharing with another town, that particular position?
It's come up from time to time, but I don't know that we've really explored it. I don't know if you have through your conversations with other town managers. It's been in discussion. Yeah. So we have contracted with a consultant that's doing the interim agent activities. And it was meant to be a short-term solution, but it's turning into longer than anticipated. So it's not the type of probably funding aspect that can be sustained long-term, but the work is necessary.
It's probably hard. It's probably a hard position to hire for, right?
I personally didn't think it was going to be this hard.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because I come from a background of environmental planning and it's sort of something that I have an interest in, but no expertise. So I like working with the commission and working with the type of applications that they get, the type of projects that they do. But I don't know the technicalities of wetlands delineations and reading soils and knowing plant species and things like that. So
we've been watching, we've been advertising for this job for close to a year now, and we have watched all the other towns around us have no issue hiring a full-time conservation agent. So I think part of the issue is years ago, the conservation agent was a part-time position for a lot of these towns, but the role has expanded. So there are a lot of people who are going to school now, specifically for environmental planning, to be conservation agents, and they're looking for full-time positions. I think we kind of found the unicorn when we had Dave, who was retired, who was interested only in part-time, which was great. And then he had to move on, so I think finding that position again for a second time is proving to be very difficult.
Yeah,
Is the salary we're offering less than the salary of other neighboring towns, or is it about the same?
Only because it's part-time,
yeah.
yeah.
But the new position that's full-time will be competitive with. them.
Yes.
And that's in the budget, it for a portion of the year or for the whole
It
year?
is currently in the budget for all of fiscal year 24 as full-time.
Is that, is
It's
that,
not in this
Not-
budget,
Not
however.
this budget.
it's not in the planning, but, Yeah.
It's not, it's in-
We've sort of,
yeah, okay.
Sarah manages, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, manages the conservation commission, but the part of the budget we're talking about today is for planning and zoning
Got it.
responsibilities and doesn't cover conservation commission.
Sarah, are you the primary contact now for the Trinity and the state hospital?
Yeah, it's really exciting. They just delivered half of their submission for Monday's kickoff of the public hearing. Each planning board member actually gets 3 binders of material, like, and I'm talking 5-inch binders. Yeah,
Wow.
so.
Does town administrator get that too?
Do you want that?
What shelf I have to clear off.
I know. No, I'll have 3 extra copies after they get distributed, so.
They're gonna be busy.
So
And
Trinity had what, another year, a full year to do their remainder of their due diligence,
They,
so.
yeah, so they actually submitted their application to the planning board, so if they're gonna get for permitting, they need plan review from the planning board, an inclusionary zoning special permit, which is the affordable housing component, and a stormwater permit, which is under the town code. Typically, we haven't done it yet, we actually, since we adopted the bylaw, I think it was 2016, it was actually adopted, but it's only triggers with land disturbances of 1 acre or more. And since the only projects that we've had with land disturbances of 1 acre or more have been 40B, so they've been permitted through a separate process. This is the first time we're using that stormwater bylaw. And so the DPW director or their designee is the authority on that. So he granted his authority to the planning board to wrap it into the same process.
But they haven't themselves found anything that's disturbing, that is gonna cost them extra money that
They're still
this,
trucking
but
along.
nothing in
Yeah.
the first 6 months.
No,
Good.
no.
You think that there was an issue, didn't know it by now,
Mhm.
Out to God's ears.
right, right.
Yeah,
No, you're working, is it you that works with the state on items like the gun?
I've not been the point person is your town administrator on the gun range in the state. She's got all of the experience and history with the state, so fortunately for you and us and me. I am working on the MBTA communities, the 3A legislation, if you've heard about that, that's some multifamily zoning requirements that we're looking at.
It's the question, does that affect us, given that we don't have any stop here in Medfield?
Yes, we're considered an adjacent community, and it's based on the original MBTA
Proximity to Walpole.
legislation and being identified as a community, so yeah, exactly. So we do have requirement for at least 50 acres of land zoned for by right multifamily development. The good news is we've got the state hospital, which is zoned for multifamily development. The bad news with that is that because of the LDA, it's capped at 334 units, not the 750 units that the state is looking for. So we've got to kind of test other alternatives and see if they pan out. But we have 2 years to do it.
And the last thing I was gonna ask is, generally there are some, I haven't gone through the whole list here, but in terms of articles for any zoning. issues,
Yeah, so this year for town meeting, there's just one article.
That's unusual.
It's very unusual, but it's not a typical article because this year the planning board is proposing a reorganization of the zoning bylaw. So it's taking the existing bylaw and sort of just reorganizing it for ease of use, putting like sections together. And so it's actually kicking off a multi-year endeavor to sort of update and modernize the zoning bylaw to be sort of more consistent with zoning, in 2020 era, rather than 1970s.
So there's sort of like cleanup type stuff.
Clean up for clarity, consistency,
Yeah.
ease of use. A zoning bylaw isn't typically meant for just everybody to read,
Mhm.
but it's nice when somebody can interpret what, their town bylaws say.
So is
So-
this article, is this like the first, you said it's a multi-year?
Yeah, so this year, we're not looking at any substantial changes. So theoretically, when you look at like a red line version, you're not seeing strike throughs and deletions like you would in a normal, just changing the text of something. But you're just being, and I think it shows up in green when it's reorganized.
Yeah.
So there are several instances where we are updating some language for, like I said, consistency or clarity. And then there's one substantive change in the solar section, or section 17. So we updated that, the planning board did. I'm an honorary member of the planning board, I like to think. And it was prior to us knowing if we actually had a project at the state hospital. So we knew, we already had the zoning in place, the state hospital zoning district, but we didn't want to complicate an already complicated bylaw amendment. So we left the state hospital district completely out of the zoning table in that section.
Sure.
Trinity may want to propose solar parking canopies in the parking lots on either side of the campus. And so this bylaw amendment would permit that for that type of activity. And so that's really the only substantive change that's being proposed. So when you look at it, it might freak out a little bit because it's, with all the track changes and everything, that I think it's like 150 pages, which obviously.
You're gonna put this in the warrant?
Yeah, we're just gonna bring the warrant, somebody send it to everybody.
Well,
You want to sign my reserve fund transfer?
well, you can, being on the planning board, you can remind our adjunct member, Christine Barton, who you
Yes.
took from us. No, I'm
Wonderful.
kidding, I know.
ZBA member is great.
That she will be a guide for us, we will.
Yeah,
She's great, and she was always our expert on all the zoning issues.
no hard feelings, huh? So back in 2014, there was a major recodification of all the town, the code, the charter, so all the bylaws
Yeah.
were part of that. And so I think a lot of changes were referenced as, to the other documents. So that it didn't need to be printed entirely.
All right, well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I should mention, I thank you very much for all the work you did on the hospital.
It's-
Quite, and I understand there's an award that just came.
Yes, indeed. Our
Congratulations.
third award.
Yeah,
Two places,
congratulations.
then one for the innovation.
Yeah.
For the MMA, yeah.
Well,
So it's been fun.
every year I'm always impressed with your grasp and your direction.
Thank
So
you very
Thank you for all. you do.
And I appreciate what you guys are doing for us as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My turn?
Yeah.
I'm shy, by the way.
Yes. Be careful. Do not fall into that.
Okay, so Mary, town clerk, sorry about my voice, getting over a bit of a cold or getting one, I haven't figured it out yet. So met with Peter the other day. The budget requests that I have, everything is basically staying the same. Salaries, which include my salary. Tracy Klink, who is the new part-time assistant town clerk. Is down there with me, and as well as our election workers are the 126.98. Total, excuse me, operations is 35,050, which is totaling the 161,248. In terms of the operations, the majority of that money goes to the elections and goes to the town code. The printing and things that we do have the opportunity, which I don't know, I know that Peter didn't really know. But after a state election year, in other words, this past year,
Mm,
we have the opportunity to work with the auditor's office at the state to try and get some money back. I did it in 2020 and had a fairly good return rate. A lot of it is for the state mandated early voting that they require us to do. So for example, in September, we were required to do a week. For the November election that just passed, we were required to do 2 weeks, including weekends. So you can put back in your expenses for certain things. It's worded a little bizarrely when I go into it. My objective is to get them to call me, which they do. And then we can kind of go through it. But in 2020, we got a pretty good amount of money back. This year I've submitted about over $10,000 between the 2 elections, and I'm hoping to get more than less. So we'll see. It's kind of this year, it's kind of whoever's in the pool first, so to speak. So I got ours in right now. So,
And I think as you described, they have pretty broad discretion.
yes, they have pretty broad discretion, and a lot of it comes back to how the legislation was written and to the legal wording of such. In other words, we were required to have, I think you and I talked about this, we were required to have police detail at every polling location, and early voting is considered a polling location.
oh,
Meaning every time
so when if someone comes to town.
I have to have a cop here, and it was required. You might have noticed things tend to get a little bit more contentious after 2020 with the election process. So it's for the protection of voters and the protection of staff and such thing. However, the way the legislation was written, the state auditor's office doesn't feel that any town is entitled to get reimbursed for that money for the police detail, which quite frankly is one of my largest expenses. So they have this section that's called other funds when you're filling out their cost certification thing, so it depends on how good of a haunt you are, to be honest with you. You just gotta kind of, that's what I mean. I want them to call me to discuss it. So we'll
Okay,
see.
good,
It's worth a shot.
good.
It's worth a
That goes
shot.
into the general fund when they get, when they got it before.
To be honest with you, the money comes back and I don't know where it goes. I
got
I just fight for the money and
Christine's car.
Christine figures out where it goes.
Deposit slip to Christine.
It would close out to free cash.
Yeah.
We're getting rumors started.
So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions, but this year is kind of a bit of a down year for us in terms of elections. We obviously have our local coming up in March. We'll have the town meeting in May. There's a possibility that we're going to have an election in the fall regarding the Tri-County School. But from what I've been told, that is not a budget issue for us.
They will pay for that.
That's what I'm being told.
Out of their project costs.
Out of-
We're paying for it.
Forward, but don't roll it around, in other words.
Yeah.
So they're saying that for the fall. they promised me that won't happen in 2024, because obviously in 2024. We'll have, it's gonna be a whopper, because I'll have the primary in March, our local. Our town meeting. Another primary in September, obviously the state election. and that-
Fiscal 25.
Yeah, and then that's assuming we don't have anything for the schools, which. Whatever, for whatever the school election or whatever that's happening, town meetings, things like that.
Oh, you mean the vocational school? The building.
Yeah, so that might be a busy year, but we'll deal with that then, right now.
Yeah, I don't envision that.
I think last year when you were talking about updating the data processing and the collection, and that was it, wasn't that one of your?
Collection of money,
Data process.
Data
The
retention, you mean the data retention?
data retention, I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of what I meant by that.
George, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, some things that have happened. So I got elected in 2021. And I was the assistant town clerk for 2020. So I will be back on the ballot in 2024. So at any rate, new things that have happened down there. We obviously got new machines. That's one thing that happened through a grant, which Denise Garlic helped us out with. So that was great. We didn't have to pay for that. We just got new voting booths, which are ADA compliant. We didn't have to pay for those through our
We did it through ARPA
funding, so that as well. We've gotten a lot. There were some things that were not a priority for the person that was down there prior to me,
Mhm.
trying to be diplomatic. I'm not really good at it,
No,
but at
that's
any
all
rate.
right.
So in terms of the general code and the data processing, from that standpoint, that has been quite a project. Which I believe that I have finalized, meaning that all of our books and everything with the AG will all be up to date and we're moving forward and we'll be able to get other books. I actually found out yesterday that our latest and last supplement is shipped.
We're talking about the general code book.
That's the general
Oh,
code
okay.
books.
How
And
about moving stuff online? Have you done that?
there's been a lot of stuff online, so all of our business certificates. Sarah actually facilitated a lot of that. She got a grant for that as well. So all business certificates, there's gonna be a portal. That piece is all done. I think Brittany's waiting to launch that piece of it. People are able to pay for things online now as opposed to physically coming in. The town clerk's office is not taking cash any longer. We are just doing check or card because it proved to be too much. What else have I done down there? All the birth certificates, all that stuff, you can order those all online. So I'm dragging it into
Excellent.
this particular century. We're getting there.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, sure. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Is the town meeting budget on your?
No.
It's in this packet.
Yeah,
No, the town
15.
meeting is
Oh.
under.
Okay.
That's kind of
It's a separate budget line item, yeah.
that's a big one, or has been in the past.
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk about that one.
Right, we're
Yeah.
not gonna talk about that,
That's yucky.
Thank you very much.
but it's a pretty,
It's, yeah.
minuscule increase. In the budget.
Yes, although we have, yes, we'll leave it at that. We'll talk about it when I.
Yeah.
We might have some backlog of some town reports to print, so,
Oh, is that in here? Oh, okay.
yeah, we'll talk about that.
The annual report? Okay. All right. Okay,
That's
great,
it.
thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
Okay, what do we have next? Andrew. Oh, wait, do we want to do the library now, or is the library later? All right, well, Andrew sticks around, so we'll do the library, how's that?
See you, Sarah. Fine.
Good evening, how are you?
Evening. Name's Pam Phillips. I haven't.
Maybe. You met Brent?
Yeah, we have two new members, Brent
I got-
and Peter.
Last year, I did. Brent, nice to meet you.
It was all.
Nice to meet you.
Okay,
Okay,
Pages down here.
the library is on page, it is
And this
on page 130 in the big book.
What about in the packet there?
In your packet, it's, well, everything's page 1, but it's after the clerk. The clerk budget, I think. Let me just see here. No, I take that back. It's actually at the end, I think. Yeah, it's like it's the second page from the end of the budgets.
right.
They always get it now. So. It looks like this.
You get it, Ed?
I'm getting there, I hope.
Okay.
This is the library.
Okay, I think you can. Anything to say, Peter? Can she go ahead? Okay.
I would prefer to someone who actually knows what they're talking about in all instances, so. if we could-
Oh, I don't know about all those things. So a few increases that we asked for, this year, nothing crazy, but we did increase, our hours. We had cut our hours, obviously, during the pandemic, and then we slowly, increased them, but we never, we had a, library assistant position that was frozen, during the pandemic, so we weren't gonna return to full hours until that was brought back. So we did that, that was back this fiscal year, so we have increased our, Sunday hours, but because, staff have kind of moved around and are doing other things, we're asking for an additional $1,600 to cover the Sunday difference. We are open 12 to 5 on Sundays instead of 2 to 5. That was by community request. For more weekend hours, and then an additional $5,774 to increase the staff time for those
How much was that? 1,500?
57.
57.
So you're going from basically 579 to 592.
Yes.
Okay, so about 13 grand.
579. I have for FY23, I have 587.
Oh, okay, I was about to project it. I'm sorry, 587 to 592. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's a 0.75%
Right.
increase. And then information technology, that covers our contract with the Minuteman Library Network. Plus an additional $2,000 for our tech planner, any tech emergencies that come up, computers that start smoking or anything like that. Plus our standing $2,170 for website expenses, and then our public computers are up for renewal, so that's I budgeted 3,200 for that. That's a little less than what it would likely be if we kept our same plan. We're still figuring that out because public computer use has changed really drastically since the pandemic. A lot of our regular computer users got internet at home, so we're trying to see whether or not we need to.
Do you lease those?
So it's a weird, we do not, but like we like pay for the service. It's kind of, I would compare it to being like cloud-based.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think we need to
Okay.
get into
The
it.
hard-
We do it. It's a 3-year contract that we have with them. and
Okay.
It's up for renewal
Okay,
in the fall. So we're still kind of
looking at the data and workshopping ideas with what we think is the best use of that money in that space.
Okay.
Because that's still an important service to provide public computers, but do we want to provide these same computers in the same space? It's kind of. One of the things that we all love to talk about at these meetings are the library's requirements that we need to meet in order to meet state aid. And one of those requirements is our materials fund needs to be 16% of the total operating budget. So 16% of this operating budget that I submitted would be 131,000 and roughly it's 750. And so I've asked for 130,500 in library materials. And that will, if COLA is given, which it generally is, that'll affect that 16%. If COLA is given before the town meeting, that adjusts what our appropriation is.
And sorry, the metric is what percent?
16%.
16% of your
Yeah.
total budget
Mhm.
needs to go to library materials.
Yes.
To be state
To
To
for us to
certified.
meet- Yes, to meet the certification requirements for state aid.
Okay. Does anything come with certification from the state?
So much, I'm so glad you asked.
Thank you.
A ton comes with certification. So in addition to, I think we're set to get $22,000 from the state. That's also part of what allows us to participate in what we like to call our reciprocal borrowing program. So Pete and I had a long conversation about the copy of the Faulkner novel,
Sound of Fury.
Sound of the Fury. I was gonna say like nonsense, maybe that was wrong. So I know I'm here quizzed on my book skills, you were all questioning that. Yeah. It came in, he had the copy that he got came in from
Dedham, I think.
Dedham. So what allows us to get books from other towns in, and also you can go to any other town and get a library card, even if it's not in the Minuteman Library Network. That's being part of the state aid certification process. So if we lost that, you would be limited to only the books that we can house in the Medfield Library building, and we would have a lot of complaints because we can't buy everything.
So how much state, how much state or federal aid do you receive each year? Is it just the 22,000?
State or federal, yes.
Okay.
You didn't mention federal, there's no.
There's no
There's
federal.
no
Yeah.
federal, right? How about library visits? I noticed there was a big downturn out there,
Yes.
obviously.
People were sick.
Yeah. Have they come back?
They have, so our metrics for FY 22 is 57,774. I don't know why I'm giving you guys these whole numbers. It's about 58,000
Yeah,
for FY 22. And then I just reported for the annual report for the year 2022, and that was in I think that was 66 or 68,000. So it's like, as we inch closer, and I'm seeing week by week, we're returning more and more closely to.
you had 19, you had 110,000, right, in
Yes.
2019, so
Yes,
58, you're getting closer.
we're getting closer, we're inching.
I guess I would just add, Sarah and I talked about this as well. A lot of people can go to your tablet and get a book out of the library now, and you don't ever set foot in the library. Does that count as a visit, or is that, no, I wouldn't
No,
think
so
so.
we have
So
a people.
it's possible they're providing,
Yes,
to me, a quite valuable service that I don't have to get my lazy butt up and down to the library. I can just get a book out without doing that. Pretty great.
Can be electronically.
Yeah,
You're not going.
We can see that trending up, certainly through the pandemic.
yeah.
But
and similarly with the computer visits, like those were people who would come in every single day to use the computer and they're not coming in anymore. But we are offering, you know, like, we are still offering a lot of programs, we're offering a lot of other things. You know, to get people in the door. So I mean, we'll see what happens, you know.
So in addition to this, you have some other funds that come in through donations and.
Correct.
And what's the status of those, what's the size of those funds now?
They're pretty healthy. Some of that was we really put a pause on any projects we were working on during the pandemic, so they've only grown since then, which is great. Yeah, but we're working now on,
So what kind of programs would that cover?
so, yeah, so all of our, all of our like events that we have, those are all funded by, they're funded out of our general gift fund, which, it's predominantly, from, gifts from the Friends of the Library, and that's out of their bookstore, and then also, Friends donations. We're in the midst of our annual friend drive, for that, so that's like everything from, you know, construction paper for children's crafts to, sewing machines for like, well, I picked another craft event. You know, we do other.
Now, is that managed by the trustees, or who manages that?
I think you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the Friends of the Library gift account.
Yes.
You're talking about trust funds.
Okay.
So you're talking
I'm
about,
actually talking about both.
oh,
I'm actually talking about funds that are outside of the budget for
Yeah.
expenditures.
So that's about 20 to 30,000 that we spend on what I call programs, our library programs.
Which is in the balance now, do we know?
You know, I printed it out and then I left it on my desk. I was back there, I was like, so I don't off the top.
We can get that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we know a person.
yeah, I think the back of the room could help us with that.
I also would like to let you know too, that there, the trustees do have available to them 2 trust funds. And as you know, a trust fund is set aside, for long-term investment for future use. Obviously, each of these 2 trust funds have a trust document. Certain balances are expendable, certain balances are not expendable. The 2 trust funds for the library, the first one is a library trust. As of December, it has $44,000. And the Catherine Bell Library Trust as of December is $290,000. And again, that can be used with the discretion of the library trustees.
What's the name of that second one?
Catherine Bell.
I think we also have Granville Bailey and Madeline L. Grant.
Correct. I do have those also. Those are much smaller.
And do you, what's your typical use of those every year?
So-
You have like a planned use?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so. Well, I personally came on in 2018, so it was like I was just getting my feet under me when a lot of our planning shifted. Yeah, so several of those funds are, I think only the library trust is not, it's like only the library trust doesn't have rules about how we can spend it. The other trusts do have, like, it's
Okay.
only uncertain, so. I think the big one that she named, I think that's for children's materials or programs, so we're looking at some sound paneling in the children's room and also adjusting the makeup of the children's programming room so we can have both storage and space. So
Okay.
we have some, you know, like construction projects for that in mind.
Excuse me a second.
Pam, the trustees do have a plan for the use of these funds. If you can email me, only because I need to know when they plan on using it so that I can have it liquid.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So it's all approved by the trustees,
Yes.
controlled by them,
Mhm.
and they comply with the trust documents.
Yes,
Okay,
And the other one for 44,000, the regular library trust, you have It's unrestricted, you could, that's
Yes,
at your discretion.
well, the trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a lot of money, that $290,000. Is that the- Must be a good investment by the treasurer.
It was. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, any other questions?
Quick question, in the printed budget, and maybe there was a change when it was requested, but last year's request was 579 and change, but currently you have 587 salaries. Was that the additional hours that were added?
No, that would have been either COLA.
Gonna be, Lola and Mary.
That's what it's.
Yeah.
And then I'm also requesting some additional funds in our supplies budget because the cost of toner has increased significantly.
How about grants? Do you apply for them? Are they available?
There's some, we haven't found any that have really like fit with our mission, but
Okay. You're always looking.
we're available and they keep us, we have to submit an annual action plan to supply for grants for with the LSTA. Just I'm not librarian. Definitely the L's library. But that's one of the major state organizations that issue grants, and so I always keep us up to date, so.
Okay, good. Right. Anything else? Sure. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Andrew, next. So, so this is the town accountant.
So, Andrew Foster, town accountant.
Okay, I think he's met everybody here. We've been to our meetings. So.
My budget, doesn't have a whole lot going on. This year I have a smaller salary, due to me not getting paid as much as my predecessor, so that went down naturally there. For my operations, I think last year we had budgeted to have 2 single audits. We only had 1.
Okay, that was one of my questions. Why
So,
went down?
so that's why that has gone down from that, but we have engagement letter.
Yeah.
That's the 37.5.
Yeah. And then for the other big part of my budget is the OPEB report. We have kind of alternating reports. We have a large one year and a small one the next year, and they go back and forth between about 10 grand and 5 grand. This is gonna be the 5 grand year. And then we also have an additional planned rate analysis for $2,500. We plan on doing.
That's
I
the,
apologize, what's OPEB?
Other post-employment benefits. So this is
this is basic, it's like 98% of it is health insurance. There's a small life insurance component, but it's for retirees.
so it's a study to calculate how much liability we have for all retirees for the health insurance benefits over their lives. And we have a fund put together. By the end of it, once it's fully funded, it should be able to mainly support all the retirees with the earnings that it has on.
Yeah, we're gonna have we'll have a separate presentation on OPEB and that budget line item, but basically it's the largest liability of the town. And there's a trust fund to work towards funding some of that liability, and we put money into it every year, a little bit every year. But there'll be a separate presentation on that. This is just about his department right now.
Is there I'd want an actuary at my hip for something like that, just to kind of retain an actuary to help calculate that.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
yeah,
I can imagine with the market down the way it is, the percent of funding is going down dramatically from year to year.
yeah, I
And
haven't
we'll
looked
see
at,
that-
I haven't
we'll
looked
see
at
the
the
presentation.
last report, but,
Yeah.
there's a, you know, we did a presentation last year, Andrew's gonna update that, and we're gonna. It'll be maybe next meeting, we'll have to schedule it, but it'll be, we know what the budget amount is, because it's in our financial policies, it's 500,000 plus 2.5%, so 525, but
Plus 5%.
5%, sorry, 5%, yeah, 5%, and then, so we know that, it's just all the other things around OPEB that we just want to take people through and educate them, and compare where we are to other towns and, you know, educate people on that liability. But, this is just if you remember last year, one of the suggestions was to do a funding analysis of that liability, because we've never really done one. You know, they kind of set this up, and, you know, it was early, they didn't need to do one, but now it's been around for a number of years, they want to try to do a little funding analysis with 2 or 3 alternatives to see what it looks like and how, you know, when it gets funded, basically, so.
So other than that, my budget, I have kind of small lines, I just raised a couple by a little bit, just to meet rising costs, but that's about it.
All right.
What's the
Well,
schedule and timing of the audit?
Of the audit, so it's due by the end of March, like that's the hard deadline. We need that for state reporting.
So they'll be done with the audit by then.
But they already came in and they're still asking me little questions here and there, but, typically it's in March when they have a report done.
And we'll have a set of financials that'll be done by then, right? Yeah, okay, I know that's usually the time frame.
And the management letter comes at the same time, or is it?
Yes.
And someone like Steve comes in and does the audit, is that it?
Yeah. I hung up my auditing. I still have my license, but I don't do any more audits, but.
Old auditors never die. They just fade away. So how is the relationship with the auditors?
It's all right. They're looking over my stuff, so you're not supposed to get too buddy.
Nobody likes audit. Nobody likes audit.
No, yeah, but in terms of what's staffing, I mean, how does that? How much time do they spend here, and what's in their scope?
Well, they were here 1 or 2 days in the summer doing preliminary testing, and then they were here another, I think, two days, December. And though they things have changed a little bit with auditing, it's kind of, they're doing things more remotely now.
Yeah.
They don't come in person for 2 weeks like they used to.
Oh, they kind of got used to it during COVID.
In 1975, my first audit engagement was the village of Elk Grove Village. So I had big trunks and all that, so I know it's changed a lot. I'm just curious.
Just to answer Ed's question, this is they're in the second year of their contract, the 3-year contract. After I became town administrator, that was on the list of things to address, was to change the auditing firm, which we did a few years ago.
So. Not to put you on the spot, because this may not be knowable, but. At the end of this 3-year this isn't this budget year or indeed the next, but is that likely to go up when we put it back out to bid for another 3-year term?
It's rare to go down.
Right, or even did.
But I assume you're getting some value out of them, you're happy with the change and it's a overall improvement from. Sometimes auditors get stale if they've been in the same place for a long time, so. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Mather, you have any questions? Feel free to chime in.
Thanks, no questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Appreciate it. All right, you're next.
Almost my bedtime, Steve.
Yes, I'm sorry you're last. I'm sorry, I apologize. Actually, Christine, she has to stay here the whole morning.
So I don't believe I've met all of you. My name is Georgia Kalibas. I am the treasurer tax collector for the town of Medfield. I have a few budgets. We'll start with the treasurer collector budget.
I think it's. After the.
Well, I would say it's like,
It's after the account.
64.
What is it?
Yeah,
Oh, and the big one, yeah, sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Interest.
Yeah, and Medicare. Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, and then the budget itself.
We only printed the treasure.
Oh, you want me-
No, it's fine.
Okay, so, ready? Okay, so for the treasurer collector's budget, for my salary line, my department has, 2 full-time people and a, 20-hour-a-week person. I wear 2 hats. I wear a treasurer's hat and I wear a tax collector's hat. I am very fortunate amongst my colleagues. My tax collector's hat is a very easy one to wear. We have a 99.5% collection rate in the town of Medfield. So I mostly spend a lot of my time on the treasurer side. Taking into consideration, the amount of debt issues that we have and the other complex, financial issues that the town faces. The second line item is longevity, that just went up $50. So obviously there's no change in the salary line other than an increase in longevity. My payroll person is 20 hours a week. She's part-time. She handles the town side of the payroll. My operating budget, however, reflects a payroll line, and that is the line where I am requesting a 5% increase. Unfortunately, that 5% increase comes from the vendor. The town uses AGP payroll software and it's human resources software as well. And they are anticipating a 5% increase there. Keep in mind that that payroll line includes the payroll for the entire town and school. 65% of it is school, 35% of it is town.
That's the 40,000,
Yes.
so that's actually
Yeah, it
less
looks
than
like,
the current budget.
yeah, it looks like, and
Oh,
this,
sorry.
and this is going down. Yeah,
You know what? It did go down. I do apologize. I apologize because we were able to run some reports and create some reports on our own. I work with Kathy Vandenboom. I do apologize, and we were able to bring that down. Yes, I did revise that. I apologize for that.
Don't apologize. Thanks for bringing it up.
hey, we'll take those.
We'll take that, anything else.
My other line is the printing postage line. So my office is responsible for excise bills, real estate tax bills. As the tax collector, I feel the responsibility that the taxpayer should receive a tax bill 4 times a year. A few of my colleagues in the area and the surrounding areas, they produce 2 tax bills. So they send 1 tax bill out with 2 remittances at the beginning of the year
and they send the second tax bill out with 2 remittances at the end of the year. And you're gonna have to remember that you're gonna owe that second quarter and fourth quarter without a reminder. It costs about $4,000 a quarter to send out bills. Excise bills, there's 14,000 excise bills that were mailed yesterday. So obviously that's an additional cost to us. Excise, is a bill that nobody likes to receive for their car. It's a very small amount of revenue that the town, collects. However, it is a good portion of our local receipts and can.
And you send water as well?
I collect the water and sewer bills. I do not mail them out.
Okay.
So that expense is not on my office.
I would
So
guess
that-
that 99.5% collection rate is something attributable in part to you doing that.
Quarterly bill.
Well,
Quarterly billing, isn't it?
Medfield is an affluent community. 'I'd say 67 to 68% of all taxes come in through escrow.
Mhm.
And that gets wired into the bank. In fact, we had our $9 million wire come in today. Taxes are due tomorrow.
So Georgia, just on the printing and postage, so that, the $10,000 increase is,
So that 10,000, I'll tell you why that $10,000 increase is there. Previously, a couple of years ago, after COVID hit, my excise bills were printed and sent out by our deputy collector, our collections agent. I found that sending it to my own mailing company that the town has used for the last 36 years, that I was able to decrease the amount of demands that had to go out. And I saw a significant amount of demands that went out after the original 30 days after the excise taxes were due. So I am paying my postage now for my excise tax, whereas before the collection agent used to pay postage for the town of Medfield, and he would collect the fees on the overdue bills. This is our second year, this will be our third year in fiscal year 24 doing that. We found that having a reputable mailing company rather than somebody bringing it directly to the post office made a huge difference in the number of demand bills that we sent out. Our demand bills went down by about 35% that we sent out, and nobody wants to get a demand bill. There's a $25 penalty fee on a demand bill, and then 2 weeks later, it goes up to another $37.
That's just on the excise.
That is
tax
correct,
bill.
just on the excise tax bill. And again, as the tax collector, I mean, that is a service that, taxpayers deserve in this community.
This is a new service going into 24,
I have it in 23 now.
but it's going up 10 grand next year.
Yes, because last year it was a last minute decision that I made, and I was able to fund it through my other portion within my budget.
So this is for a full year. That's what
Yes.
you're flexing.
Yes.
Because you used it more towards the
Yes,
end.
last year I did it on a smaller commitment that the registry sent out rather than a larger commitment.
Okay.
And I tested it. I did a little test on it. And it worked. I mean, we saw a huge difference. We didn't get the phone call. I never got the bill. And again, nowhere in the Mass General laws does it require a community or a tax collector to email a bill.
yeah,
We're not at that point yet. A few communities do have a service where they contract with, and the bills are emailed out to taxpayers and to residents. Obviously, the town has to pay for that service.
Is there a good lift on that versus postage fund? Is it like an opt-in for the residents?
I have not looked into it, I'll be honest with you. I have not looked into it, but it is one of my goals for fiscal year 24.
Oh, Curious. We always try to get people to opt-in to be delivering.
Yeah.
stuff.
It's not, it's not widely, a lot of treasure collectors don't really use it. And it's funny, a lot of the cities don't even use it either. It's a lot of the smaller towns that would use it because they don't have the staff.
George, I know, it's done. The budget, your department budget isn't impacted by this, but. It's a big responsibility that you have is the management of our town investments. And I wondered if you could chat a little bit about that. And, you know, what's the size of it and,
So obviously, that is nowhere in my budget. There is no expense, for that. Municipalities are quite fortunate, and I myself, me here for 31 years, I have a very good working relationship with the banks that the town deals with. We pay no service costs. And we're very fortunate for that. A couple of my accounts do have compensating balances. But we do not have to budget, unlike other towns where they do have to budget for banking fees. I am very fortunate. We do not have to budget for banking fees. Will that change? It might change somewhere down the road. I would not be surprised. We're finding that every couple of years, there's always one or two less banks that want to deal with a municipality because in reality, they're not making money on us.
yeah,
I mean, all my reconciliations, those are all free. I don't
Yeah.
pay for anything. So that is the fortunate piece of it. So as far as the investments, we have our general fund investments, which are governed by Mass General laws as to where you can and where you cannot invest. The town is quite fortunate to have a sizable amount of trust funds, long-term investments that are obviously invested long-term in bonds and US Treasuries. And those are for long-term purposes. So it would be putting the money aside, similar to what I just mentioned before, the Catherine Bell. Mrs. Bell had it in her will that she would have willed or requested to the town a certain amount of money with an applicable trust fund document. This is what I would like it to be spent on. You can only spend the interest every year, so on and so forth. And the town is very fortunate to have a few of those for future use. And that is managed by Bartholomew and Company, Commonwealth Financial Network. 80 to 90% of all municipalities use that vendor. They're very reputable. But other than general fund investments, I mean, as you know, years ago when I was in the business, I mean, you know, you could invest in CDs. You're not doing any of that right now.
yeah,
And in reality, the majority of our revenue comes in at the end of every quarter. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when 67% of your tax revenue comes in on the day before taxes are due.
Yeah.
So, and then you have your water and sewer revenue that comes in twice a year. And you have your treasurer's receipts that come in. So when I say that the buck stops at my office, it pretty much does. Any revenue flows through the treasurer's office.
yeah,
Department heads make deposits, whether it's a school rental, or whether it's a dog fee, a dog license fee, or a building inspection fee. It all comes through our office. COVID certainly added to more online users. As far as the tax collections, those who don't escrow, you know, go online and pay, which is great. You can tell your bank to pay on February 1st. I've also, building inspection is 100% online. And DPW stickers are online. And then just recently I completed my fiscal year 23 goal, and the town clerk is fully online, which is a great resource for our taxpayers. They don't have to come into this building, especially during COVID. They didn't want to come in. And even now it's It's just so much easier. You can order it and, come pick it up and you're all set.
The things like,
And it's a nominal fee, excuse me.
Yeah.
It's, I think it's like 55 cents with an ACH transaction. Obviously, the credit card is a little bit more because we are not paying for the bank fee. So unfortunately, that fee gets added on to the consumer, to the taxpayer.
yeah. But you oversee some of our fiduciary investments. I know you outsource the management of, something like all these reserve funds, stabilization funds.
So that is part of
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's part of my trust funds,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And then the other portion of it is the PRIT money, the OPEB money that the OPEB committee voted a few years back that our investment would be at the state pension retirement fund. So that is also as a fiduciary trustee, yes.
So do you have a compendium of all of these different buckets of trusts?
I do have a trust fund
Yeah.
document. I'd be more than happy to email it to
Yeah,
you.
we just, I mean, if there's 10 different
Yeah,
entities.
I have more than 10. I believe I have like 29 or 28.
That's for every.
there's a
every
handful of big
department
ones.
That has
There's
a
a lot of.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the schools have a few, the library has a few. Obviously, we have the capital stabilization, the building stabilization.
Pension reserve.
Yeah, we have a few scholarships, like the Michael Harmon Scholarship Fund. Yeah, I'd be more than happy. I'll email it to Steve.
Yeah, sure.
I balance that every quarter. And again, I do get statements on it every month from Bartholomew and Company, but I reconcile. There's not much activity.
Right.
And again, the activity that does go through the trust fund is an activity that's well planned because you have to make certain that you have enough money that's liquid in order to pay for that expense.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'd like to see that.
And we have a couple of other budgets, I think, that you're responsible for.
Right. So I also have the regional vocational school. Obviously, I think you're all on the same page. That has been level funded until further notice. I did reach out to the school business manager yesterday afternoon. They do not have a number as of yet. He said probably the beginning of March, we'll have a number. So hopefully we'll have that before the end of before the warrant goes.
So we have three here in front of us, I guess. It's
You have Medicare?
Medicare, we have debt service.
Yep.
Interest and principal.
Okay, so we'll do the Medicare budget next. The Medicare budget is a mandate. Most of my budgets are mandates. So the Medicare budget, is a federal mandate. So anybody hired after January 1, 1986 has to pay 1.45% of their gross earnings. And the employer, the town of Medfield, has to match those withholdings for each employee. Let me see, my request is $665. So this is town and school.
Yeah, this is everything.
This is everything. This is the entire, this is anybody who works with the town of Medfield who was hired after 1/1/86. We match the 1.45% of their gross earnings. So historically, we have been increasing this budget by 5%. And in order to avoid a reserve fund transfer at the end of the year, we usually tack on an additional $10,000 in anticipation of any COLA and also the teacher summer payroll, which when I'm preparing my budget, I don't know how many teachers are going to opt to get a lump sum. The more teachers that get a lump sum, the higher the Medicare deduction is for that final payroll in June, which bumps it up a little bit. So what we've been doing is increasing it by 5% and adding an additional $10,000. And the last 3 or 4 years, it's been pretty much on the money. And then anything that's in there obviously gets closed out to free cash. And that eliminates the need of asking for a reserve fund transfer when theoretically a reserve fund transfer is an extraordinary expense that you haven't budgeted for and that you haven't foreseen. Asking for a reserve fund transfer to me is not appropriate for this because we all know what the mechanics are of it and the factors.
Right.
And again, that's town and school.
But, so you add 10%, 5% plus 10,000. And last year that number was
624.
624,
624.
then 8%.
10% would be another 60 something, so it's like 70, so we should have an increase of about 70 something $1,000. But this looks like it's. a lot
I think
less.
it's 5%, right? It's 5% plus
It's a
10. 5% plus 10,000.
10,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Ken is usually, it was the
Right.
reserve fund transfer that I would always historically ask for.
Okay, I just had a percent wrong, okay.
Yeah, that's okay, not a problem.
A few years ago, you remember, we went back through and looked at what our reserve fund transfers were.
Right.
And the ones that were recurring every year, in our plan to be more transparent, and in our operating budget was to stop those recurring reserve fund transfers and put them in the operating budget. We know they're going to happen. They should be in there.
All right.
And something like that does not define a reserve fund transfer, you
Mm.
know. So I looked at the history of it and, that formula seems to be working, so we'll see. Principal and interest, I don't know whether or not you have my debt schedule. I do believe I've emailed it to Steve. If not, I will definitely email that to him as well. Nothing has been added for fiscal year 24. There are no articles in the warrant that would require the treasurer to borrow. So the requests for both principal and interest are literally pulled off of my debt schedule for fiscal year 24. And I'd be more than happy to email that out to both chairman, and they can share it with the entire committee. A lot of the debt, the non-excluded debt, or I should say the excluded debt, is rolling off.
That's why it's going down. Yeah.
Yeah.
But question,
And also, sorry to interrupt you, in anticipation of, reducing the interest portion of the budget, we do not have any debt that we can refund at this point in time. Obviously, the last few issues were at, interest rates that we probably won't see again. And current interest rates are much higher. So a refunding would mean almost like refinancing your mortgage at home. Refinancing and getting a lower rate to save on your interest. We took advantage of that a couple of years ago when we borrowed the funds for the wastewater treatment plant. And we were able to refund a few of the issues and recognize the savings at that point in time. Unfortunately, that is not going to happen for a while now that the interest rates are higher.
yeah, unfortunately, those days are gone. The I forget what I was gonna ask now. Oh, for the Affordable Housing Trust. They're
We
thinking,
have an authorized and unissued. We have an authorized and unissued of $1 million for the Affordable Housing Trust.
right,
That is, it's out there. I have had no directive that there are plans on borrowing against that article.
Coming
It's coming.
very shortly. Maybe by the end of the week.
So if that's the case,
should we adjust this for that, for a plan?
well,
I think we need to talk about that.
yeah, we probably need to talk about that. And again, I would never borrow long-term for $1 million. It's not worth it. We would probably do a short-term ban. And maybe roll it into in fiscal year 25, if something were to occur with another long-term borrowing or renew another ban again.
Okay, okay,
Borrowing costs are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And to borrow something for $1 million is not worth it.
yeah. You know what the plan is for that? You don't know yet,
I believe they have a proposal, they're doing the Main Street project, they're working with Dave McCready, and Craig Rafter on, they're doing a subsidizing, several units of apartment housing, next door. Selectmen just signed the local initiative project application at their last meeting.
okay.
And I believe the total on that project is about $400,000.
Oh, so it's even less than. a million.
It's less than a million.
Yeah,
So that's
so
why
we-
we haven't, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
all right. Okay,
And I believe that that is, those are all of my budgets, I mean, other than retirement, but, I do believe that you have the number for retirement, as we had discussed earlier today. So
yeah, we'll have a. Well,
Retirement is gonna be
that'll be a
another-
separate discussion, yeah.
very good. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I will email Steve and Bob the trust fund and the debt schedule.
Thank you very much.
Great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank
for everything.
you.
Thank you.
And thank you for volunteering.
So a question for the committee. In the past, I guess, they've kind of done it both ways. They voted, the committee has voted on individual budget line items as we've gone along. And then other times they've kind of done it in at the end for everything.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what's what the preference is, but
Last year, didn't we do it by, after each presentation? Didn't we do it that way last year?
We're in a better position to do that last year, right? Better.
yeah, I think there was, the problem becomes if
Oh,
Things
yeah,
moving
fine.
around.
there wasn't much of a gap last year. though. It was- it
Might
was-
want to steal like.
Yeah, we may want to wait to the end. to
Yeah,
do
I
it,
think that makes sense.
Yeah.
The way-
Okay,
Let me do it in total, because
Yeah.
there's so many dynamic changes.
okay, all right. We will wait.
I have a
Okay.
question, really quick, I'm forgetting the COLA increases, that line item in the budget? It's in the human resource. It is, okay. You guys anticipate that being on the same as prior years, or?
I'll review it when we go through the budget worksheet, but right now it's currently at 3%.
Just curious. Hitting everybody else.
Wage inflation is ripping through all the time.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
The balance. I should say, not the stuff. More of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I would like to start, I think, closing out 23, before we start fiscal year 24. So I'd like to just review the measure of compliance with you. It should be in your packet.
that is,
Yep.
the last
If
thing.
not, I have additional copies.
Yeah, I think it's at the
Okay.
end of the packet,
Okay.
actually before the warrant. article.
Okay, so as most of you know, when we updated the financial policy last year, one of the things we put in there was that this had to be, the measure of compliance had to be voted on by the Board of Selectmen after our free cash was certified. And the vote is to review what we estimated for fiscal year 23 in meeting the financial policy, we call it the measure of compliance. And then, so we estimated for fiscal year 23 when we go to town meeting. And then after free cash is certified, we bring it to the Board of Selectmen with the actuals in it to show you how close we were into meeting that measure of compliance. So the financial policy has a goal of 9 to 12% of reserves. I think we're getting feedback.
Yeah, and Mather, can you put your speaker on mute, Mather? Are you on mute?
Oh, sure. I mean, okay.
I don't think it matters.
That's not Mather. Maybe it's coming from,
Maybe because
I think that
Christine's talking and then going into that computer.
yeah,
oh, should I put this on mute?
I think put that on mute.
Okay, Mather, you don't need to do it. Now I don't know where the mute button is. It's over there.
It's because I have 2 accounts running tonight on this. IT
There you
extraordinaire.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
see if that works.
There you go. I could just hear myself talking and that's unsettling, to say the least.
Mather, you can come off mute, sorry.
Sorry. So just to show you so the financial policy has a goal that we keep, the goal is 9 to 12% of reserves of our general fund expenditures. It's still
happening,
going.
yeah.
Is it, maybe it's the volume one?
No, it
Can
should
you turn your volume down to zero?
Okay, see if that works.
otherwise I'm gonna sign on. Is that better?
I think so.
Okay. So just to go through this sheet, in fiscal year 23, we estimated that our general fund expenditures would be 65,605,796. Approved, we were at 67,862,757. So we anticipated that we would hold on to 8.9% of our reserves as general fund expenditures, and the actuals have come in at 8.7%. In total reserves, we have met the 7.5% requirement. So although we have a goal of 9 to 12, we should not fall below the 7.5%. Sorry. I just want to tell you how close I was. I don't think I have it on this one. No, we were the closest we've been to meeting that 9% since we put the financial policy in place. I believe we're about $120,000 off of that. So we are definitely moving in the right direction as we adhere to the financial policy. The second part of the measure of compliance is that we are required to keep 2.5% of free cash on hand as our general fund expenditures. We estimated at the end of fiscal year, estimated at town meeting that we would have a free cash balance of 1,729,299 on hand, and that has been approved. And we were at 2.55% versus 2.56% of our free cash. So we have met the measure of compliance for fiscal year 23, and the Board of Selectmen voted this at their meeting last week.
Great.
Thank you. Great job.
And at some point, when we get further along in the budget, they'll update the spreadsheet to tell us where the FY24 budget falls with our compliance
Yes.
with these policies.
So we're constantly doing that now as we work on the budget, so that any changes or anything we make as we move forward, basically from this point forward, will impact that financial policy. So we've already started tracking that, even though we don't have a balanced budget yet, we are still tracking that for you as we go to 24.
Good.
Okay. So then I'd like to walk you through the fiscal year 24 budget worksheet. Oh, actually, I can't even believe I didn't lead with this. I'm sorry. I need you to change how you refer to this budget booklet, because we've been notified that we received the Distinguished Budget Award. So you must now refer to it as the fiscal year 23 Distinguished Budget Award. Thank you to my team.
It's a very nice packet.
The first year, and we met with our consultant from the Collins Center who helps guide the document, and he was amazed at the number of marks that we received on our very first one. So
Yeah.
thank you to the financial team and all the department heads for the work they put into that.
No, it's a great document.
Yeah.
Shows a lot of
Well deserved.
So that comes with a dinner and what?
So fun story. It actually comes with a really nice plaque and a really nice bronze medal that unfortunately we found out about. We should have found out about this in December, but they had a mail merge problem and all of our stuff was sent to Oregon. So the finance director in the city of Tigard, Oregon has all of our stuff.
Well, that's
Yeah. So we were starting to get a little nervous that we hadn't heard because we had to apply in October. And we emailed them and they were like, no, you already got this. We sent you an email in December, and it went to Cindy Trimp in the city of Tigard, Oregon.
Couldn't you think that being the only Medfield in the entire United States of America, they wouldn't?
It's
Yeah.
fascinating to me that we could have a mail merge. If you.
But I'm going to make a motion that eggs go out to Oregon.
Depends what part of Oregon it's in.
Yeah.
Just south of Portland, matters. Just south of Portland. Be sending that to us, and we will obviously display it for everybody to see.
Congratulations.
That's excellent. That's very well deserved. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I wonder how many towns get it the first time. It's my
don't know.
understanding is it takes at least a couple to get that award. So that's great.
Uh,
Will they have some feedback?
They gave us plenty of feedback.
Okay.
And that's where Mike Edwards from the Collins Center was surprised at some of the really high marks we got. We had a couple of,
Yeah.
cranky people who looked at it, but easy fixes for a couple of comments, but we do have to apply within 90 days of fiscal year for the next town meeting. So
Okay,
we'll have 90 days in which to submit that as well. So you have to submit it every year.
yeah.
Submit this report.
Yes, has to be updated and submitted every year. Your budget distinction award is only 1 year at a time.
Right.
Here you go, Frank.
So just keeping everybody busy.
There we go.
But it's still a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you've done the tough part, the first year is the hard.
Yeah. Okay, fiscal year 24 budget worksheet. So typically, we only usually show 3 years on here. Obviously, our fiscal year 24 going back forward, and then we would show you 3 years going back. I think it's really important to have a few more years on this. One, because there's a few years of pre-COVID for you to look at, and those are pre-financial policies. And then to look at 21, 22, and 23 as our COVID years, and when we really were adhering to our financial policies. And then obviously we call 24 post-COVID, as we have started to emerge into our budgeting without a lot of our subsidies from the government in terms of COVID funding. So the top section, and I'm not going to go through each of these line items unless you'd like me to. I think we'll go through any of the ones that are highlighted in blue, and anything in yellow, was just a reminder for me to touch base with you on. So if you're looking down the fiscal year 2024 estimate column, our revenue, total property tax levy, is 54,882,170. I put in here the 2.5% increase for the municipal building stabilization fund override. I put that in there. The Board of Selectmen have not voted on that yet. I anticipate they will do that towards the end of February, beginning of March, same as last year, but we are carrying that, and I have every indication from them that they will be continuing with that vote. So we're reviewing the revenue section first, just as a heads up for those of you who haven't seen this before. The next section is our estimates on our state aid, our local receipts, other available general funds. When I talked to you 2 weeks ago about the budget, we said we were being very conservative with our state aid estimate. Since then, we have talked to several of our colleagues. We attended the Mass Municipal Association meeting, and we are more conservative than we were 2 weeks ago, in that we are level funding our state aid. I think we were too aggressive when we were looking at some of our initial indications of what we would get, and I would hate to overestimate that at this point.
Yeah.
So they had the revenue consensus hearing. We anticipate the governor will file her budget on March 1st, and she indicated to us at the MMA meeting that as soon as she knows what the local aid number is, she will give it to us, and she anticipates that will be before that March 1st deadline. So it would be helpful to get it sooner rather than later, but unfortunately, there's not much control.
What was said to you to make it seem like it won't go up at all?
I think it will go up. I don't think we had been talking about a 2% increase. I don't think at this point I can comfortably say that it will go up by 2%. So we've decided to level fund it at this point. Yeah. Okay, so that's
We'll get a clearer picture in the next month.
yes,
So,
yes.
Right.
yeah,
No, I would just think new governor should want to get off on a friendly foot. That's an expression, and she can include some kind of increase. Especially this year when they are under the impression that they have money, knowing full well that down the road, trouble may be coming.
Agree, and she did speak at the MMA, and she talked about fully funding the circuit breaker this year, fully funding the Student Opportunities Act. But I think every governor makes us those promises at the MMA, so I think we just need to wait and see what her new budget will be. So
I think the revenue thing that came out today was like only 1% increase. So they're not forecasting a very big increase in overall revenue for the state in 24.
Okay.
So that's before the millionaire's tax though. So let's see what happens with that.
But that doesn't kick in until calendar 20.
I think it's this year. I think it's 26. I think it's this calendar. I think it's this, yeah, this calendar, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so the top part of that is our revenue. Then we move on to expenses. This first box here is all of our insurance. And that is our workers' compensation, our liability, and professional insurance. We have 111F, which covers our firefighters and police who are not covered under workers' compensation. That is in our top part. And that property, general liability, and professional, that is for schools and town. The next box, and these are what we like to call our fixed costs, and they were shared between the schools and the town. Unemployment, life insurance, health insurance, I want to talk to you about. So I had a conversation with our Blue Cross Blue Shield representative, and she indicated to me that we were going to be very close to the 10% increase based on our usage from about 18 months ago is what the look back period is. I had a great conversation with the chair of the Employee Insurance Advisory Committee. They've called an emergency meeting for next Wednesday, and we are meeting with our representative from Blue Cross Blue Shield to discuss plan design changes or ways that we can bring that increase down, not only for the town, but for our employees as well. So 10% is much higher than we've seen, obviously in the last few years. So everybody is going to be looking now to bring that cost down. So we'll be working on that over the next probably 6 weeks or so. But as a reminder, any plan design changes or any changes to health insurance are mandatory subjects of collective bargaining and need to be reviewed with all of the unions as well. So that is still a work in progress. We have our total on the town and school benefits. Then we move on to principal and interest, which we discussed with Georgia. We're recommending a $500,000 transfer to the general stabilization fund. That is from free cash. And then we go down to our town departments, and these are the budget requests that you're seeing as you meet with all of your different department heads.
Right.
I do want to flag the facilities budget. I think this is one of the budgets we still have in flux. And Michael, Frank, and I are meeting next week to try and work out the facilities budget with Amy to figure out exactly where we are on that. So we're a little behind on the facilities budget. So I would just hold that as a caution when there may be some change into that line item. And then as Georgia mentioned, the vocational school assessment down below. We have calculated a 7% increase on that. I did have a conversation with Dr. Marsden today, and I believe we may have had an increase in our enrollment there. He's checking the numbers for me so that we can sort of anticipate what that cost will be before Tri-County waits till March to give us that number. So we can do a little bit of math on our own for that one. The next section of the budget is the expenditures that are not requiring appropriation. That's our items that don't need to be voted on at town meeting, but are included within our budget. We then have some monetary articles that you'll see down below. That's anything that we handle at town meeting. We have several articles this year, including one from the Affordable Housing Trust for $25,000. So when you go through the entire budget worksheet and you get to the bottom, you currently see that our general fund surplus deficit is minus $945,169. So that is the current delta between what we anticipate for revenue and what we have taken in from department heads and the school department as our possible expenditures for this year's department, this year's total operating budget. So it's not great news. But this seems to be where we are every year when we start looking at this. So we are about the same as we were this time last year. I'm hoping as soon as we have our state aid number and have a better handle on the health insurance, I will be able to report back to you that delta is smaller. But those changes are not going to be this entire $945,000. So we are going to have to start making some decisions moving forward, what we're going to do on the budgets.
And this budget reflects the anticipated cost changes with the current contract with the police?
Correct.
Yeah.
And it does include, I'm sorry, I totally skipped over your question, when I was doing it. It does include 3% within the human resources budget. That is the recommendation for a cost of living increase for our non-union employees. The fire department contract, which they are in the second year of their contracts, have a 3% last year and this year. And obviously, we're working on the MOU, so I can't discuss the specifics of the police contracts. But we do like to make sure that our non-union employees are treated as fairly as our collective bargaining employees.
And the school contract got done a year ago. They had their increases.
Their increases are in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And part of the wage pressure we're feeling is back in the first year of COVID, when we did our budget, we had all of the department heads and management, including the school department, took a 0% increase, and all of the union and non-union employees. I don't believe the teachers are included that, but on the town side, police, fire, and all of our non-union employees had a 0% increase as well. Not many of the towns made that sacrifice to balance the budget. We chose to do that, and that has put us behind both in our collective bargaining agreements and with our non-union employees. So that's another reason for that wage pressure we're feeling now.
So we have our work cut out for us.
Yes, indeed.
I listened in on Zoom to the school committee presentation. I was most of it last week. They're roughly 5% over. In prior years, have they been at this stage, has it been comparable and they bring it down?
That's been higher. This current estimate is higher than their typical increase. Yeah, and they brought that 5% down now to a little bit under 4.8 or 9 or something like that, a little bit. But we started working on that the other day. So
Yeah, I mean,
we got a lot of work, a lot of things to review.
I mean, yeah, it's a big number, and you know, it's a big part of the overall problem and challenge that we have is to get to a balanced budget that, you know, I don't want to say makes everybody happy, but maybe shares the pain, I guess. And so I think
Well, I wasn't attending the school comment. I was
Yeah.
just saying,
yeah,
is this historically what happens? They start high and you put it down, or
well, I mean, I don't know.
Higher than normal.
I mean,
It's higher than
historically, everyone starts higher,
normal. Right.
but the room for movement, because it's such a large number. And so in the last couple of years, all departments, including the schools, have come down. I think we've tried to do in the past is work proportionately. So if you see where the town budgets, town departments are, and where the school is, what that ratio is, we start with that conversation. Now, we don't always get to that absolute number proportionately, but that's been the process.
But I mean, one of the big drivers on the school side is the collective bargaining agreement.
right, which is fixed.
That they, you know, did last year, and this is the first, you know, full year of it being, you're seeing the effect of it now. And, you know, it's like what, 1.7
83% of their budget.
1.7 million of their budget increase is just the collective
Just
bargaining.
to pay the CBA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a big number. Yeah.
One of the other things, I'm sorry, I neglected to mention, in terms of our property, general liability and professional insurance, you'll see we've anticipated an 11% increase, and we've met with our insurance company to review that. They are actually working on making a proposal for us. We currently have $1,000 deductible on our property and liability. They are running some numbers for us. If we increase that to a $2,500 deductible or even a $5,000 deductible, what the savings would be on our overall premium. So I should have that by next week. you know, they pointed out to us on a $371 million valuation for our buildings, $1,000 deductible was fairly low. Yeah,
Yeah.
compared to what other towns are carrying. So we're excited and anxious to see what that savings could be overall for us.
And you have an insurance board or insurance committee? Like, in the town, I mean,
Oh, for health, you're talking about the health insurance?
well, I thought there was like I don't know, like, I guess I was. Is there an insurance group that helps advise you in the town, or is it just?
It's the financial team making
Okay.
this decision.
Okay, well. Appreciate the overview.
So you just
Sorry.
have to find another 900,000 in revenues.
Yeah. Basically.
Easy peasy.
Quick question, the line item for inspections.
Mhm.
What is that again?
That's the building department.
Right, okay, we'll cover that then.
Yep, I can give you just a brief update why that's increased. So we had, our building commissioner left, approximately, I think it's at least 2 months now. And part of, he was, stolen from us by another town, for a significant increase. And this is the wage pressure you're gonna hear me talking about for the next 3 months. In reviewing our salary, we're about $15,000 lower than what the other surrounding towns are paying for a building commissioner. You know, building commissioner is part of our public safety team, incredibly important to the town. We are functioning right now with Gary working part-time for us, and I brought in a temporary interim who's working a couple of days a week to do inspections, because I don't want to reduce the amount of customer service we're giving to our residents. But we've had to increase that salary line item to match what the surrounding towns are. We're just not, we're not getting any applicants who are interested in that position for the salary we're offering.
Since the person who goes around to the different housing project, I mean, like a new septic system, that it's just the person who comes out and inspects them from the town.
This is the building commissioner, so
Right.
if you're gonna put an addition on, they're coming in to do the inspection for your electrical. and
For all the
plumbing.
major.
So, is there any other questions on the budget? We want to just quickly touch on this list of articles.
Sure.
I just had one more, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you said this earlier, but the town report meeting line,
Mhm.
that also has a 14% increase.
So we have.
Did we cover that?
No, it was a
No,
joke.
too painful for me to talk about. No, it's good.
Okay,
So we have 4 town reports published this year.
okay.
So we.
That's
anticipated
been
significant-
delinquent.
Yes,
If
Okay,
you remember, there was an article that got withdrawn at the town
Yes.
meeting last year for approval of the town
Yes.
annual report. It
Right.
wasn't ready.
okay.
those people, the board of selectmen who might be in arrears are almost done with their reports and should be ready for printing. Brittany's been sitting on everybody to make sure it's ready to go, so. That's why we'll have the increase in.
Those don't get mailed out anymore, right?
The town reports do not, but warrant
Okay.
does.
The warrants, right, yeah, okay.
Now, when I look at the library pays in its budget for its utilities.
Yes, and they're one of the few departments
Yeah.
that does. The reason for that is when we were consolidating utilities into the facilities budget, if we took all of the budget from the library, that counts as that reduction, and we're not meeting that limit.
To the state.
The
Yeah.
16% or whatever,
I
yeah.
thought that was just
Yeah.
materials.
No, it's the overall budget. So if you remember last year, we reduced their budget during COVID, and we had to apply for a waiver because we had dropped below what the library board has set for their anticipated increase. I'll send you the letter we had to do 2 years ago.
With that, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the overall budget.
Okay.
Sorry.
Alright. The article.
Articles?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are actually moving forward with our accepting annual report article. And I have not assigned numbers to these yet.
I
I've learned my lesson.
Sharon's not on this call, so, but she would tell you why.
I'm not assigning numbers yet, and I am also, we'll leave it at that. But just to go over a few of these, so we're accepting our annual reports. These are our standard, the ones we have every year, our perpetual care, our revolving funds. This year, for any of you that don't know, when we hired the public health nurse, we are now providing vaccines. And we're going to set up a vaccine revolving fund because we will start collecting revenue based on those vaccines. So we'll set that up for the first time. The PEG access is one of our standard articles, elected official compensation, the personnel administration plan, fiscal year 2024 operating budget. And then we have some of these housekeeping articles in terms of the budget, transferring funds into the municipal building stabilization, transferring them out for facilities, transferring into capital stabilization, transferring out for the capital budget, our fiscal year 24 water and sewer enterprise fund budgets, appropriating the surplus bond proceeds from the water treatment plant. We are an article to rescind the additional $500,000 in borrowing authorization for the water treatment plant. We currently have both an ambulance revolving fund and an ALS revolving fund. And if you remember back to 2018, there was discussion at that time if we should move the ambulance revolving fund to ALS, and we weren't sure if ALS was going to be successful. So we left those two separate, but at this time, ALS has proven to be very beneficial to the town. And so we're combining ALS. Advanced life support, sorry. So we'll move to close that the current ambulance revolving fund into that ALS revolving fund. We always carry a prior year bills article. We have an article for appropriating funds for an elementary school feasibility study. Just so you know, the first meeting of the new school building committee will be this Thursday evening. I'm anticipating that we will have an agreement to move forward for the police collective bargaining agreement. I have an article to withdraw the town from civil service. We have an article to appropriate funds for the cemetery fund for the study and design of the cemetery expansion. I have an article for appropriating funds for the construction of a garage at the senior center. I believe this article is actually going to be folded and included within the municipal building stabilization fund. So this is why we don't have numbers.
Yeah.
We have an article for PPA agreements, and that is primarily for the school committee. If you'll recall, I believe it was in 2021, the Board of Selectmen had an article to allow them to enter into PPA agreements, and that's for our solar projects. At that time, we did not include the school committee. I think that was just an oversight. So we need to get that passed so they can start doing some solar projects. The Board of Selectmen are proponents of a noise bylaw, changing the hours. As I mentioned earlier, we have the Affordable Housing Trust request for funding. The Board of Selectmen are supporting making private wells subject to the same drought restrictions as the rest of us. Sarah touched on the reorganization of the zoning bylaw. The Board of Selectmen have had some discussions about some changes to the school committee bylaw that was passed last year. We have a citizens petition regarding the school committee public hearing process. We have a citizens petition for compensation transparency. Just a note on this, I believe this one is actually going to be withdrawn. We met with the proponent of this article today, and believe we have come up with a compromise that does not need to go to town meeting. They actually wanted to have all of the salaries printed in the warrant report, which would
It would be very expensive.
It's very expensive to do that. I don't disagree that it's good government to have salaries published, but it's more appropriate for that to be published in the annual report. And so they were totally amenable to that. They just would like it published somewhere. We suggested online and or both, having it both in the annual report and the online, and they were amenable to that. So I believe that will be withdrawn. We have another citizens petition to form a groundwater committee. And then the last article we have is always, if there's a need for a free cash article to balance the budget, which we have not needed, we didn't need last year, so I'm hoping that will be the same position.
Does the annual report have to be printed?
Yes,
It's a requirement, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's mailed or that one's not mailed?
annual report's not
You
mailed.
just
We,
print it and put it on here.
yeah, we have it available at town meeting for people to pick up.
Okay.
Although I'm
And
assuming,
then it gets, the copy goes to the library too.
and the library and the state library, and then we do put them online as well. But I'm assuming if we start printing everybody who works for town salaries, I'm gonna have to print a few more annual reports than I have in the past. So,
I'm sure copies.
All right.
Yeah, can I just, question? You didn't talk about this at all, suggesting you don't think it's gonna be controversial, but the vote to withdraw from civil service. Is it, is that gonna be in the collective bargaining agreement, therefore you don't think there'll be controversy about it?
I don't think there should be controversy about it, but we can talk about that more after the MOU's been signed for the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
They've negotiated.
We've been talking about it. It's the town's right to sponsor the article with or without an agreement for collective bargaining. We've been having, as you know, recruitment and retention issues, and part of that is our hands are severely tied, being a part of civil service and who we can recruit to the town. Most of the other towns in Norfolk County have come out of civil service, which is giving them a much greater advantage than we have.
Okay. I wasn't saying I was against it, I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
No, there's
something to
definitely
consider
some-
in controversy.
No, there's definitely some education that will need to be done to explain why we're doing that.
So any costs associated with the articles?
Right.
Are not reflected in the 985, right? I mean, in the deficit that's in there right now.
Well, they're funded from other sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, the only one that I anticipate being funded from free cash would be the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay.
And that's reflected in the budget document I gave you this evening.
Is that the monetary articles?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
everything.
Yes, your monetary articles will be the perpetual care, the revolving funds, the PEG money, and the Affordable Housing Trust at this point. And the vaccine articles.
Feasibility
And
study.
feasibility study.
Okay. We just talked briefly about the schedule going forward. So on February 13th, Monday, we have the fire and police coming, public safety. Both chiefs are going to be here
Both confirmed probably by Zoom.
by Zoom. Okay. Hopefully we can get that working, and
I
then
will have that working by then.
Let's give you a heads up.
and if there anyone else that wants to step in on the 13th, certainly let me know now or shoot me an email.
I'm trying to have a few
Okay.
ready to go, so outreach will be good.
Outreach. Okay.
And council on aging are my goals. It's those two ready, and then I figured we'll get together at some point, Christine, but maybe we wait a little bit later and see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I see where we're going with.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least to get it started, but. okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And then obviously any other. There's a break for vacation week, and then after that, our next meeting's the end of February, so. We should probably try to, schedule as many as we can during that. Well, that might be when we do have to talk to Sharon, whether the capital projects will be ready by then.
Capital budget will be ready by then. I'm hoping that the municipal building stabilization fund projects are ready by then, but I know
Okay.
capital will be
And
finalized by
I
then.
think DPW we have scheduled on that day too, so.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, he and I traded.
DPW on the 28th.
Yep.
And capital budgets, okay. Okay. So, is there anything else informational that anyone wants to share? Mather's going to its first school building committee meeting on Thursday.
Correct. Yep. Hot off the presses, that just got scheduled today.
With all kinds of updates the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Any questions?
Good coverage, good input, thank you all. Yeah, well done, you brought your group together.
No, it's, I enjoyed it. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. Wait, you start getting into that 900,000, you'll really be learning with us.
All right,
Good departments, good people, once again.
Best.
Good
Yeah.
people.
with a motion,
I've been very, I have find a couple people better and bad, that's been so helpful and willing to talk to me and explain stuff. Great.
Motion to adjourn.
so moved, second. All right,
Aye.
aye, and Mallory.
Hi.
Aye.
Hey,
Thank
hey,
you.
Mallory, thank you.
Adjourned.
Hi, thank you.
We're adjourned.